Okay, so we're just going to uncover um, the learning targets. I understand the patterns of disease transmission. We went through some notes the other day about, and you guys did some of the classes, did a disease transmission thing where, it can be through the air, it can be through touching food, it can be through those different things. I can name and describe the basic structures of a virus. Okay, does it have an envelope? Does it not? Those protein spikes, you guys colored and diagrammed the different parts of a virus. I can distinguish between DNA and RNA viruses. We did those in the notes, and we'll fill out a table today. DNA viruses are a little bit more stable. Those are easier to come up with vaccines for. RNA viruses have more room for mutations. So like the flu, how it changes every year. I understand the difference between viroids and prions. These are virus-like organisms that we will talk about today. One of them has to do with, they think, Alzheimer's. And you've heard of mad cow disease. That is one of the prions we'll talk about. I can explain how the body attempts to fight viruses. One of the at-home assignments you guys did was about fighting viruses and how your immune system attacks it first, and then you make the memory cells, and so we'll discuss those. And I can integrate my knowledge of viruses to diagnose a viral disease. That was some of the at-home stuff you guys did, where you're playing doctor and had case studies and we're trying to figure out what kind of virus, or if it was a virus or bacterial and those kind of things. Okay, so we did this. Talked about the different shapes, the icosahedral, the enveloped viruses that have the little protein spikes on them that attaches to cells and tries to get its entrance in. Some are DNA versus RNA viruses, so there's different sizes, shapes, colors. And we listed some of those. The very first virus was the tobacco mosaic virus. All right, and here's different sizes, shapes. We went through some of the specifics. The Ebola, some of its causes. We will watch, I think we're going to watch Outbreak later if I don't feel like it's wasting too much time, but once you guys all get back, it'll be easier. This is HIV. Okay, hepatitis C, we talked about this. Hepatitis C does not have a vaccine. Hepatitis A and B do. Okay, no vaccines. This a lot of times comes from like people using drugs. My nephew has hepatitis C. He's been in rehab a couple times for he was a heroin user, and he's got hepatitis C, and he'll have it for the rest of his life because it's not something you can get rid of. So there are vaccines for the other two, not this one. The flu, I showed you the influenza movie. Smallpox, the third world countries, okay, they don't have a vaccine. It's eradicated in the United States pretty much because we have that vaccine for this. Polio, I had a teacher in high school that had polio, so that hasn't been, well, it has been a long time ago, but she had a malformed leg, and a lot of those people do have that from the polio virus, but now that's pretty much eradicated as well. Genital warts is a virus. HPV, you can get a vaccine for, human papillomavirus. Okay, they can be genital or oral, depending on what you've touched or where you've been in contact with. Okay, these are genital warts on the vagina and on the penis, and you can get them surgically removed, but they probably will come back. Okay, herpes, there's different types. Okay, there's herpes 1 and 2. There's the type that are cold sores, which are the most common. And those, well, once it's in your bloodstream, it'll be there forever. So anytime you get stressed or you get real sick or something, that's usually when these cold sores will come out. Okay, here's herpes, vaginal herpes. Unfortunately, babies will get a lot of these viruses coming out of the uterus. So if a doctor knows for sure that a mother has one of these genital diseases, they will do a C-section so that the baby can't contract it when they come down the uterus. But a lot of babies are born like this because the mothers didn't get any prenatal care. So that's kind of unfortunate. AIDS can be transmitted the same way to babies and a lot of these viruses. Okay, here's another herpes picture. Another, just, a good rule of thumb, if you have any pussy blisters in your genital area, go to the doctor. Okay, so here is, let's watch this. It's about prevention. This is my public service announcement to all of you. How you can get it, how you can spread it, how you can stop it. Oh, shoot. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that because I don't have sound since I'm using the microphone. Here's ways that you can help try to prevent some of these STDs. Okay, males can obviously use condoms. Females, there's also a female condom that you can insert up into the cervix. That looks extremely comfortable. All right. Cancers linked to viruses, cervical cancer, the HPV, that's why they're doing those vaccines. Liver cancer and hepatitis B and C. What happens with hepatitis and a lot of these drug users is they get very jaundice, which means that their liver is being attacked. And so the hepatitis can lead to liver cancers and things like that. So, you know, a lot of cancers can be linked to viruses. All right, we didn't do this. Not all viruses cause diseases. Okay, many viruses reproduce without causing any obvious harm to the infected organism. So it's just like with COVID, you can be a carrier and give it to somebody and maybe you not show the symptoms. Okay, some viruses, such as HIV, can cause lifelong or chronic infections, and the virus continues to replicate in the body despite the host's defense mechanism. So there's really no defense against HIV. We know that. Okay, so it's going to be around with you forever. It just takes advantage when you're not feeling well. However, viral infections in animals usually cause an immune response. So if you've got the flu, you start getting a fever and these different things because your cells are telling you they can't fight it and they need help. Okay, your white blood cell count will be up because more white blood cells are trying to be made to help you fight whatever disease it is. Okay, so here's HIV. It starts out with lots of sores. And and I know some of you that had HIV is one of your diagnoses. The sores are very tender. It can lead to blisters. Okay. Also, these blisters, can form basically anywhere, but you also get this easy bruising. Okay. This is somebody's ankle. So you get this, very easy bruising. And that was one of the dead giveaways of the HIV symptoms. So their immune response can also be produced by vaccines that will give you lifelong immunity to a viral infection. Some do, some don't. Because the flu mutates all the time, we have to get new vaccines every year. And we went through that with some of our worksheets that you guys have done. When it comes into contact with a host cell, a virus can insert its genetic material into the host. Okay, that's how it's going to reproduce. An infected cell produces more viral proteins and genetic material instead of its usual products. All right, so that's kind of what, if it's an RNA or DNA viruses, we're dealing strictly with the genetics. We're not with the membranes and all those kind of things. That is why antibiotics don't work with viruses. Some viruses may remain dormant inside the host cell for long periods, causing no obvious change in the host cells. Okay, this stage, and we've talked about this too with the replication. This stage is called the lysogenic stage. So you can be infected and not show symptoms because it's really not replicating. It's just kind of laying dormant. But when a dormant virus is stimulated, now we say it enters the lytic phase. So lysogenic, just lying around, kind of hiding. And when it's now replicating and becoming more contagious and those kind of things, it's going to be in the lytic phase. New viruses are formed, self-assemble, and burst out of the host cell, killing the cell. So this would be and infect other cells. These are called bacteriophages. So this would be lysing, Lyse. as opposed to budding. Okay, so when it lyses, it explodes out of the cell and it's going to kill the cell. And hundreds of these little viruses are going to be released. So here we have the virus anatomy, either a DNA or RNA, some kind of protein coat, and, depending on whether it's enveloped or not. So here's the lysogenic cycle. It's just dormant. It's kind of just, hanging out here, not doing a whole lot. Then when the host cell gets into the lytic stage is when we have the major reproduction going on here. Okay, so, and then it's going to burst, like it shows down here. It's going to burst out of the cell, killing the cell, and going to infect many more that it will kill. Okay, this is just called a bacteriophage. It's got a icosahedral head and a polyhedral tail is what we call it. The DNA is in the capsid at the top. Okay, another picture of the bacteriophages. Here's your tobacco mosaic virus. Okay, the very first one. Here's an enveloped virus. They're just different pictures of different ones. Okay, so here we have the viral group, what kind of nucleic acid it has, RNA or DNA, and our examples. So the papillovirus is a DNA virus. Remember, DNA viruses are more stable, so you could probably get a vaccine for that. Can we get one for this? Yeah. Okay. Genital warts and some kinds of cancer, so you can get the HPV vaccine for this, the human papillomavirus. Okay, herpes viruses. That's DNA. Okay, can we get vaccines for some of these? Yes. Chickenpox, shingles, and chickenpox, they do have vaccines for. Mono and herpes, there are not vaccines. Those, basically, if you have them, they're going to lay dormant in your body, maybe forever, and might flare up again, may not. Okay, but there are vaccines for these other two, chickenpox and the shingles. Okay, pox viruses, smallpox, chickenpox, cowpox, not chickenpox, sorry, smallpox and cowpox. Yes, there are vaccines for those. DNA, pretty stable. The coronaviruses, those are RNA. So now we're getting to the more unstable, harder for vaccines. So like hepatitis, there isn't a hepatitis A and B vaccine, but not a C, because the C one is too unstable and they can't come up with, or haven't yet come up with a vaccine for that. Myxoviruses are also RNA. That's the flu. There's over 200 types of the common cold, and the flu mutates every year. So whether we can, haven't come up with a one virus, flu virus vaccine yet. Rabidoviruses, that's an RNA. That's rabies. Okay. We don't have you pretty much have, you can get a rabies vaccination for animals. Okay. And then we know how to treat it if it comes to the human. Retroviruses, these are RNA, like AIDS. Again, we know that is too unstable and they tend to hide. The memory cells hide. And so that's the problem they're having with the AIDS and the HIV, trying to find a vaccine. They can't pin down where that virus hides in the body. So RNA viruses, harder to vaccinate against. DNA viruses are more stable and they're a lot easier to come up with vaccines for. Okay, here's flu versus flu versus a COVID-19 death rate. I just found this last week. So here's deaths of the flu. Some people are like, well, we get the flu every year and everybody's getting all upset over COVID. Well, there's COVID-19 tends to kill faster because it's going to affect different parts of the body, the respiratory system and those kind of things. A lot of times the flu, why people die of the flu is from dehydration, vomiting, diarrhea, those kind of things. So yes, definitely COVID has proven to be a bigger killer than the flu, and especially in the age group of, let's say, 65 and older. This is 65 and older for the flu. These are 65 and older for COVID. So definitely COVID has had more effect on the United States. Okay, so this is regional flu. Okay, I think this is, let's see, flu activity for like the week in November, flu activity for November. So that's the start of our flu season. And it's going to be more, let's see, where's the widespread? More out to the west. Okay. Ours tend to be January, February, those kind of things. Here's by month. Okay. So we said our flu season, I think on that one paper we did, it said November to May or something like that, which was a wide range. But ours tends to be December through about March. Everybody's kind of shut in the house. It's cold out. You don't go many places. And so it can spread within households, and then they go somewhere else and it spreads again. Okay. All right. Viroids. This is not a true virus. Scientists in the 70s began discovering even simpler and smaller virus-like organisms that can cause disease. So those are called viroids. They contain only RNA, but don't have an envelope and a capsid. Okay, so these are agricultural researchers found that it caused problems in potatoes and tomatoes and some fruit trees. Okay, recently a viroid has been linked to hepatitis D. All right, so they have some of the characteristics of viruses, but not the envelope or the capsid, but the RNA and the fact that it's causing illnesses. They're putting them kind of in with the viruses, and they're called viroids. You know what? I'm going to stop there because with showing the videos actually in class tomorrow, it's going to take a little bit longer. So